What's up? What's up? I'm Brad, and I'm a metalhead, and this is the first video I'm doing on this channel. And today I'm going to be reviewing the new Trivium record titled "What the Dead Men Say." It was released this past Friday, and for me, Trivium has always been one of those bands where I, I can honestly say that if it wasn't for Trivium, I would not be a metalhead if it was not for Trivium. Trivium pioneered metal for me, and it's funny because it really wasn't until I started listening to them around like the Vengeance Falls, Silence in the Snow era, and honestly, I think that's what a lot of hardcore Trivium fans would call their lowest points. And that before that I was more into rock, and I love rock now, but Trivium to me was like that point in their career was almost like a bridge. It was a bridge from the rock that I was used to into the like heavy metal, almost extreme metal that I'm into now. So that was very cool, and Silence in the Snow sort of was the start of that for me. And while now, after I would say listening to Trivium's whole catalog over and over the past few years, um, I would not call that my favorite Trivium album. I wouldn't even say it's close to my favorite Trivium album. But anyways, that's what really got me into Trivium and what really got me into metal. So I mean, Trivium obviously is a huge band in my life now, and especially after their last album, The Sin and the Sentence, which in my opinion, I think that's their best album, and I know a lot of people will probably disagree with that, but I think it's their best album. There was so many different influences on there, just parts of, there were so, fuck, well, they had, just think about it, they had the cleans from Silence in the Snow that were, like, you can't deny, even if you didn't like that album, that the cleans on that album were great, and it's, up until that point, was Matt Heafy's best vocal performance in, like, definitely the history of Trivium, at least for the cleans, because obviously there are no screams out of that album due to his vocal injury. So that's the one part you got there. You also got their most, arguably their heaviest material to date, with new drummer Alex Bench really bringing in lots of extreme metal influences, both with his, you take his double bass work, which arguably is the best that Trivium has had since their original drummer Travis. You take the blast beats, which Trivium honestly up until then haven't really done that much. They've done it in a few songs. They experimented with it on In Waves and parts of Vengeance Falls, but that was pretty much it. You take that, and not only that, but a lot of some heavy down-tuned guitar work, a lot of tremolo sections, and that's just another amazing aspect of that album. And that's, you look at Trivium, and they have the melody, and they have the raw heaviness, and you bring those together, that's what Trivium is. And to see both of those elements of their music just at their peak with that album just was like surreal. I am in love with that album. It's without a doubt my favorite album by them. And maybe I think differently if I listened to Trivium when albums like Shogun, Ascendancy, Crusade, In Waves it just came out. Maybe I think differently, but I've dwelled into every one of their albums a lot, and I can honestly say Sin in the Sense is my favorite. So following that up, I was pretty excited going into this album. The singles got me at least somewhat hyped. I'll say right off the bat that song "Amongst the Shadows and the Stones," which is the third single, I would say without a shadow of a doubt that is my favorite song on the album. Similar to just that whole extreme metal influence that I loved about Sin in the Sentence really comes through there. There's so much aggression, like raw heaviness to it that I just love, and it's also a bit of a stylistic change for them as well, because how many times do you hear the chorus, and for a hardcore Trivium fan, do you ever hear them do that, like with the simple chokes, and just I feel like they don't really have, at least in recent years, they don't really have many full-on screaming choruses, and that's one of them right there. And I love the song. I think it's a great song. Some other highlights on here, I was a fan of the lead single Catastrophist. I think while that was a bit more radio friendly, a bit more basic in terms of stuff they could do, I thought it had a really good groove to it. That bridge section I really loved, and while stylistically it's really not that complex, I thought it worked really well, and it provided a great high point of the song. And then like you know you got that final chorus. It's got such a huge finale to it. I love that. And as far as the second single, which is the title track, I thought that had some high points. I'll get back. I'm not going to talk about the negatives now. I'm going to start with the positives, then go to the negatives. So I'm going to get back to that song later. But anyways, as far as the actual non-single tracks on the album, I will single out the Defiant. I think that's a great song. It's just a classic metalcore sound like you'd hear from a band like Killswitch Engage or Bullet for My Valentine. And like it's almost like a throwback. And I feel like Trivium has always had such a distinct sound, but they never really followed that whole mainstream metalcore. Like the bands I just mentioned, they never really followed that sound. While they did pioneer metalcore, I don't think they followed with that sound. I think they had their own original sound the whole time, which, you know, is just a combination of classic metal, extreme metal, and that modern metalcore sound. But I don't think they really ever, I wouldn't say Trivium was in that big group of the modern metalcore fans. Like I said, Killswitch Engage, Bullet for My Valentine, All That Remains, As I Lay Dying, like that kind of thing. I think Trivium has always been separate from them. But to see them sort of dabble into that sound, I think that was pretty refreshing as well. What else? I'm looking at the track listing here. I will single out Bending Dark to Fear. I think that's a great song. I feel like it's a really good stylistic change for them, especially that main riff, how you got that like super low toned chug going on, and then like you got the tremolo guitar parts combined with that, and that awesome double bass work from drummer Alex Bent. That even just that main riff by itself, I think that's a great stylistic change for them. And then this song, I'd say this song might be the heaviest on there. This song and Amongst the Shadows and the Stone, probably the two heaviest songs on here. And what I love about Bending the Art to Fear is that it's all over the place. It doesn't have that traditional format, whether it's Trivium's traditional format or just a traditional song format. Bending the Art to Fear doesn't have that. It has so many different elements to it. It's always evolving. It's always changing, and like it's almost like you're not like you don't get used to it. You know what I mean? Like there are songs that do feel a bit repetitive on here. Like for example, the song "Scattering the Ashes," which is by far my least favorite song on here. It's the only one that I skip over and over. I just think it's really forgettable. I think it's them trying to recreate "Endless Night" from Sin in the Sentence, which that song was okay. It wasn't my favorite on the album, but I at least liked that. I didn't skip over it. But I feel like this is them trying to do a second version of that, and it just, I don't know, it kind of fell flat for me. I think the chorus is really dull. The chorus is literally the same line said twice. I couldn't get hooked on this one, but that's just an example of what I mean by it when I say a song can be repetitive and you get like sort of in the rhythm. But with Bending Dark to Fear, you don't, because like your first listen, you think something's going to happen, and then they switch it up and do a totally different part. So that's always very refreshing to see as well. I do like the song "Bleed Into Me." I think that's definitely going to be a radio single, and I could see it doing pretty well. It's, again, while it is radio friendly, and I could definitely see why some people may not like it, especially with hardcore Trivium fans, but I think it works. It's got that really good bass groove going with it. It kicks off the song right away. The overall vibe to it is almost like, it's almost got this like medieval vibe to it almost. I don't really know how to describe that, but and you could say that about, I know you could say that about past Trivium songs too, but this one just hits different than songs like Shogun, songs like Shogun, or any of the songs on the Shogun album that like you could say had that sort of medieval vibe, or like songs on the Crusade. But it's just, this one really made me feel that, and I don't know, maybe that's just because I'm, maybe I'm an emotional person and I'll pick up on the emotions of songs and I pick up on the vibe of songs, but I don't know. I think it's a good song. I think it's got a pretty catchy chorus. The lyrics aren't. I guess the lyrics are a little repetitive, but you know, it's a radio friendly song. That's what the song is. But you know, I like it. I think it's good. Cygnus Unto You, I'll shout that one out real quick, just because I don't want to make this video too long. But again, a really heavy one. Lots of extreme metal influences. It starts out more melodic, but then it just goes into this like full on. It just turns from melodic to a full on heavy metal song. So again, sort of switching it up, doing something you wouldn't expect when you first heard it. Anyways, as far as the negative points on the album, and I don't think there were that many. I already talked about Scattering the Ashes. I just think that's kind of a lame song. I will go back to the title track though. While the title track does have a lot of great moments, specifically that pre-chorus I love, and the bridge does sort of have this dark, that dark vibe to it, like we've seen from Trivium in the past. On albums like Shogun and Waves, I did get some of that. I did get a hint of that at the bridge of the title track. Although the problem I have with the song, I just feel like it's having such an identity crisis because there are such heavy moments on here, but then there's that chorus and there's other parts, like even the verses too. Listen to the verses because the drums are so fucking heavy. They're just not stopped, and there's all these cool fills, and they got that that skank beat going. I love that, and the drums are amazing, but then it's this oh man, I can't get past that. There's these these happy guitars over it, and Matt Heafy's singing is almost not even going with either of those, because the drums are super heavy, the guitars are almost happy and cheerful, and then he's got that almost triumphant, he's I know this is a lyric in the song, but he's calling out, but it doesn't. I feel like all three of those aspects, I feel like they don't really go together, and as a result, I feel like the song seems very broken up. It's almost like it's multiple songs, not only spruced in together to one song, but even over each other. So I just, and like I said, the chorus, I think the chorus is just really lame. It's almost like poppy. It's repetitive. Oh man. And even that whole breakdown. While I do like the whole vibe of it, it's kind of a lame breakdown. The drums are a little basic there, with the exception of a few fills. I think Alex Spence is a great drummer. Just getting that out right there. So I'm in no means saying that he has a poor performance on here, but just that breakdown just seems really lame. You know what I mean? If you listen to it and you listen to past breakdowns, even on here, the breakdown of Amongst the Shadows and the Stone, I love that. And even on the Defiant, there are breakdowns on here that are so much better than that one. And the fact that it's the title track, it's the first song on there, and it's the second single. You look at the title track from Sin in the Sentence, that song is a fucking beast. That's the total package. But I'll talk about that song for a minute, because I feel like they do have parts in common as far as mood shifts. Because that song had a lot of power metal influences. The song as a whole felt like a power metal song. But there were also those dark sections, such as the outro and the bridge with the blast beats over it. There are some dark sections in there, but I feel like Trivium did a much better job at tying those together in that song. Whereas with this song, it just seems really really stark, and it's that it was forced together, and it just I couldn't get into this song, and I really wish I could, because there are some parts I really love about it. Especially, I love the pre-chorus. I feel like that pre-chorus is just classic Trivium. It's got a great riff over it. It's got Matt Heafy's classic screams over it. It's got the great double bass work like we've seen way back in Ascendancy. I love parts of the song, but I just can't get into the song as a whole. And the Ones We Leave Behind as an outro, I'd feel like that song's a little forgettable. To me, it sounds like that point of In Flames' career that, with the past few years, up until their most recent album, which I'm a fan of, but in, their few albums before that, where they, sort of started adapting that whole like I don't even know how to describe that, like video game rock sound. I feel like that's the same kind of vibe I'm getting with this song, and I again, I'm not saying this song's bad. Like there was the title track. I would say the combination of those sounds made parts of that song bad. But this song, I'm not saying is bad. I'm just saying it's forgettable. It's skippable. Like this is another one. Like I feel like I just skip over it, and it's really a shame because it's coming off Bending the Arc to Fear, which is one of the best songs on the album. But it just, again, maybe they're going for another single here, but I don't know because it's also one of the longer songs on here. So I don't know. I just couldn't get into that. But overall, there are definitely more positives than negatives on this album. I'll single out just a few parts. Like I said, I've already said the drum performance on this album is just stellar. I love Alex's techniques, his skank beats. He does a lot of blast beats. He doesn't overdo it. The only part I think he's overdoing it would be on the verses of the title track, and maybe that's just because of, like I said, the stark contrast between the sounds there. But he doesn't overdo it. He knows when to be heavy, when to not be heavy, which I feel like a lot of metal drummers struggle with. I'll single out just a few parts on here, like the chorus of, the pre-chorus of "Sickness Unto You," how he's blasting over it, and that just, with Heafy's vocals and those low guitars, just sounds so dark. I love that. And then I sang up Bending the Arc to Fear again, a lot of great double bass work on there. Back to "Sickness Unto You," I love the bridge of that song. I'm a drummer myself, right? I love the bridge of that song because it's so. I feel like a lot of metal drummers get criticized because they're not as technical, but Alex Bent is a fucking technical drummer. Listen to that bridge, and you cannot argue with that because I'm a drummer. I've been listening to it since it came out. I'm still trying to figure that shit out. So props to him there. That's a great moment of the album. That bridge there, love it. As far as the guitar work, I do play guitar too. I dabble with guitar, I'd say. I love a lot of. They got some pretty cool riffs on here. I don't think they have as good of riffs as they did on Sin the Sentence, but like I already signaled out that just that groovy pre-chorus of the title track, the pre-chorus of the whole song of Amongst the Shadows and the Stones, and the whole song of Bending the Arc to Fear. Some great riffs, stuff we haven't heard from Trivium yet, like I mentioned earlier, and it's great. And obviously the vocals are phenomenal. The chorus of the Defiant is probably my favorite vocal performance of the album. Just so, he really gets up there, and it sounds just so powerful, so triumphant. I love that. As far as bass, I already singled out Bleed Into Me. It's got a great groove to it, and Bending the Arc to Fear, I feel like there's a lot of good bass lines on there as well. So, stylistically, I feel like this album's good. Just I don't feel like it's as good as Sin in the Sentence. That's the thing. Sin in the Sentence had some killer riffs, and it was just. I just think that album was great. And this album is not as good. I do think this is a great album still. Like I said, there are a lot of songs on here. There are some great Trivium songs on here, some classics. I think Bending the Arc to Fear, Amongst the Shadows and the Stones, The Defiant, Sickness Unto You. I would even throw Bleed Into Me in there in the title, not the title track, but Catastrophist. I was trying to say. I feel like those are great songs. And one thing I feel like Trivium does really well is they switch it up every album. I don't think, with the exception of Ember to Inferno and Ascendancy, I don't think any two Trivium albums sound the same. So they're always really dabbling with new stuff, switching it up, and that's what I love about it. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and give this album a 23 out of 30. I do think it's a good album. I don't think it's a great album. I don't think it's nearly as good as Sin the Sentence. I still got to figure out where I would place it on my Trivium, my list of favorite Trivium albums. But anyways, thank you very much for watching. Like I said, this is my first video, so I would appreciate it if you subscribe. I'm going to be coming out with a lot of hopefully a lot of reviews, and as well as some other videos as well. So hopefully you enjoy this video and you enjoy those as well. Thank you for watching.